Well, hello again, everybody. This is John Narcisik, Trading Perspectives. As always, we have our very good friend, Sam Clement. Sam, say hello.
Hey, John, how are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing real good, actually, and I'm going to be doing even better when all this election nonsense is finally past us.
I hear you. It seems like that's all anyone wants to talk about right now.
Well, it's all everyone wants to talk about, but it's also it's getting to be increasingly frustrating because I don't know how you are, Sam, but it seems as though I've got two choices here. I've got vanilla and I've got chocolate, or I've
Yeah,
got cheese or pepperoni, or I've got hamburger or cheeseburger. I don't have a lot of options, and
yeah,
you just hear the two parties seemingly just scream past one another. I heard a pretty decent joke that if the Democrats came up with a plan that everyone were to jump off a 2,000-foot high cliff, the Republicans would counter with one where people only had to jump off a 1,000-foot high.
exactly. That's pretty spot on right now, and that's really for the majority of our country's history. That's kind of how it's been. Is really just a two-party system.
And you know what's frustrating is if you go down either political party's platforms, I would dare say, unless you are just a pure ideologue, you wake up every morning just thinking you're an elephant or you're thinking you're a donkey. Unless you are a pure ideologue, there is absolutely no way you can agree with every tenet of every platform. There's just
Yeah,
absolutely no way. And so here we are we're getting ready to have, maybe we say this every 4 years, but the most important election in memory. And we have two choices, and most of the people probably don't agree with 100% of whatever their party for whom they're going to vote.
yeah,
Whether or not you
yeah.
like Donald Trump or whether or not you like Joe Biden, there's probably a real good chance there's something. If you're voting for Trump, there's probably a real good chance there's something about him you just really don't like. And if you're voting for Joe Biden, there's probably a whole lot that you just kind of question.
And that's kind of been the case with everybody I've talked to about this. They go, you know what, I don't like this, or I don't like this, or I don't like their platform, or I don't like something maybe even about the candidate themselves. But they go, well, what are my options? I have two options.
Yeah, I have two options. I have vanilla or chocolate, or I have country and Western music. That's
I like it.
kind of the way that is. And it's, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but that's unfortunately kind of the way that it is. And when you look down the various party platforms, you're going, where do I fit in? And that's where, I think a lot of us are. A lot of Americans just simply want to be left alone. They want to
Yeah,
have a decent option. They want to be sure that they can live their lives and conduct business in a manner in which they choose. They want to be free from outside interference. That's the majority of people with whom I am familiar. Maybe not all people. However, what are the true options here? It
there.
seems as though the Republicans are going to tell you what to do, and the Democrats are going to tell you what to do even more. So, Sam, what would it be like if there were a third party out
For those people, or this real or imaginary person, whoever it may be, it'd be nice if there was maybe a third party whose platform was about leaving you alone, letting you do what you wanted and
there?
spend your
Well,
money on what you wanted. Wouldn't that be fantastic for those people that we're picturing?
Well, Sam, what you may not know is in 2016, I actually contributed $25, big $25, maybe one of the few political contributions I have made in my life, because I wanted to have Gary Johnson, the Libertarian candidate for president that year. I wanted him to at least be able to participate in the debates. And I forget what level he had to get to, 5%, 10%. I forget where it was, but he was far off of it. And I was just thinking, just give a little bit. If everyone gave a little bit, he'd have enough money to get the audience out there. And obviously, ultimately, it didn't happen. But even so, the Libertarian Party that year got over 3% of the vote. That's showing that they've had really, I can ever remember. And most people don't even know for what they stand.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to me that in this time, to back up, there's something called hoteling theory, and that's basically that if you pictured, say, everybody on the beach, and there was a bunch of there was two ice cream shops where they could be, and right now those are the Republican and Democratic Party, and everybody along the beach was, perfectly spaced out along the beach, all the way across it.
What do you mean? What do you
Ideally,
mean by spaced out? Sort of like the way that they might be spaced out after a Grateful Dead concert, or
not exactly, but those people are the voters, okay? But in this analogy, if you were the ice cream shop to get the most, customers, you would want to be as close to the middle as you could possibly be, right? If you could be at 51% and one person was at 52, you would get 51 and below and you would win. You would have more than the other person.
It sounds like the Price is
That's but that's always kind of been the theory with a two-party system, is that they tend to want to get closer to the center, because if they do, then they get more of the voters, and voters are closer to one candidate, and that's how they get the majority. But we've seen the two parties tend to separate, especially in this last election or in this upcoming election, and that would tend to make sense for a third party to swoop in and start getting at least that 5% that you were talking about. But we haven't really seen that been the case yet.
Well, what's even more strange, I mean, I hear exactly what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. At least that's the way it's been the majority of the presidential elections, which I can remember. However, it seems as though day is night now and black is white. I mean, it's absolutely.
Yeah.
Here we have a Republican Party that for years, I mean, growing up, it was, gee whiz, we're going to have free trade. It's very, very much that. Well, it wasn't too terribly stringent on immigration and all that. And on the other side of the aisle, the Democrats fought tooth and nail against a lot of that. And now here we are, it's almost the exact same as holding court now. And so not exactly sure what all we're going to believe in another 10, 20 years. But Sam, when you're talking about that middle of the road, the right to be left alone, it sounds a lot like maybe some of the preamble of the Libertarian Party constitution and platform. And Sam, strangely enough, I happen to be holding that right now. I just popped up in my hand somehow.
Magic.
I'm going to read just a little bit. These are the Libertarians' words, not mine. This is from the preamble. Consequently, we defend each person's right to engage in any activity that is peaceful and honest, and welcome the diversity that freedom brings. The world we seek is to build one where individuals are free to follow their own dreams in their own way without interference from government or any authoritative power. What do you think about that?
That sounds pretty good to me, doesn't it? Leave me alone and
leave me alone. And that's a preamble. And then you go into the statement of principles, and gee whiz, everything sounds fantastic. And the Democrats are going, well, that sounds okay. And the Republicans are saying that sounds okay, until we get to things like, we oppose the administration of the death penalty by the state. We are for abortion as an individual right. And then in the economics, we don't want any regulations. Yeah, we don't care if income's unequal. We're just going to make sure that people can generate it. So here you have a party which is pretty much government butt out of all aspects of our life, which frankly, Sam, sounds okay to a lot of us. But do you think that goes against human nature?
I don't think it does that much. I think people are just, trained to think that they need to go for one of these two parties. I think that's part of it. And I think the other part is some of these issues that they take, and I'll give it to libertarians, they seem to stick by what they believe in a lot more than either of the two major parties. And
what's great about it is their last convention, they voted to leave their platform alone. They didn't change their platform at all.
Yeah, and that they really do stick to what they believe in, and I think there is something to be said for that. There's a lot of it I don't agree with, and a lot of it that would be hard for me to swallow. However,
Sam, I would say that you probably feel that way about the Republican platform or the Democrats.
100%.
A lot of it you agree with, and some of it you just can't swallow.
Yeah, and that really is the case, and it just begs the question: what really do you think it is? I've kind of said why I think it is. Do you think it's, people are just trained to vote for one of the two parties? Do you think it's people don't want to feel like they're wasting their vote, or do you think it's some form of, something the Libertarian Party agrees with is too hard to swallow?
I think it's a number of different things. First off, the Libertarian Party, for some reason, has always kind of come across as a little people that really are kind of out there. Kind of flaky, really. Although you can read the platform and go, this isn't flaky at all. Second off is the Democratic Party and the Republican Party have a ton of money, just an absolute ton of money, and the Libertarian Party just simply doesn't.
Right.
And third off, there are way too many people and way too many factions, power groups, whatever you want to call them, that have too much vested in the two-party system. Way too vested in the two-party system and the way way they currently operate to allow a third party come in. And let's face it, the Libertarian Party actually did quite well, got over 3% of the vote back in 2016. But the Green Party, Sam, the Green Party was is the fourth largest U.S. party, and it got around 1% with a woman by the name of Stein back in 2016.
Jill Stein. Yep.
Yeah, and comparatively, I read you a little bit about the preamble of the Libertarian Party. Well, here are the four pillars of the Green Party of the United States. And Sam, I just so happen to have this. It just plopped up on my desk. Here's the first, and the four pillars are peace, ecology, social justice, and democracy. Peace is the first pillar. Our country's long wars and worldwide military presence are immoral and unsustainable. Our military budget must be cut dramatically. Ecology. The human cost of climate change is too high. We need to get off fossil fuels and onto renewable energy. Social justice. Falling wages and rising bills are hitting most of us, and the most vulnerable are hit the hardest. We demand a living wage and a real safety net. And finally, democracy. We demand public financing of elections, open debates, and more representative voting systems.
You know, John, that's a lot of demands and not a lot of plans, as it kind of sounds like to me.
Well, the thing about it is there's also some things in there that I'm not going to take too much of an issue with. It'd be fine if we had greater open debate, if we had more options. Well, we actually had to invite Jill Stein. We actually had to invite Joe Jorgensen, Gary Johnson. We actually had to invite them to the debates so people can hear at least another option. I mean, this year, what was it? The Tulsi Gabbard, was that her name? And the Democratic the platform, she said some stuff that wasn't kind of going in keeping with the remainder of the party, and she was almost ridiculed, made out to be a fool in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah,
but it actually wasn't so crazy at all. Now, why can't we, as Americans, demand that at least in one of the debates, the first one, that we at least have the Libertarians and maybe even the Green Party show up, just so Americans can hear something else? What would be wrong with that?
Well, I think both the Republicans and Democrats would probably see something wrong with that and see some sort of maybe even an existential threat to their whole party's platform, or at least some loss of their kind of followers once some people realize there's a third party that kind of fits maybe what they're thinking of a little bit better. And so, to the people in power, the people on both sides of the aisle and the Senate, the House, there's not a lot of incentive for them to want to do that, because generally, if you're in the government, you probably agree with one of those parties' platforms pretty strongly, and don't have any reason to let somebody else on the platform.
And that's it. And you're hitting on a lot of nails on a lot of heads right there. What you're saying is there is absolutely no incentive for either the Republicans or the Democrats to invite the Libertarians or the Green Party to the elections.
Yeah.
Or the debates. Absolutely no one's. As a matter of fact, there's an enormous disincentive. So are we saying that perhaps politics operates kind of like,
politics
operates a kind of a lot like, any other business where you're incented, that which you're incented to do, you will do. That which you are not incented to do, you will not do.
Yeah, it's a duopoly.
There's nothing in it for the Democrats and the Republicans to open it up, is there?
No. And so how does that change? How do you envision that ever changing?
Well, I think you and I need to walk across the street over to the empty parking lot at the old Brookwood Village with placards and signs and demand greater participation in the presidential debates in 2024. We should have a rousing protest appeal.
I'll let you handle that one, John.
People might expect it out of me, and so no one would pay much attention. But I mean, saying we got, I don't know, a fistful of people. The only way we could get that happen would be maybe, it's about 4 o'clock on a Saturday, and offer free beer as well. Do you think?
Then I might be coming to that one then.
No, but as a Gen Z or as a younger person, what would make you demand or search out or otherwise figure out a way to get the Libertarians to have a bigger voice, to get the Green Party to have a bigger voice? What do you think we should do as a society to demand it?
I think it would take a more agreeable platform than either of the kind of two big alternate parties offer right now. And, I think it's hard for people to want to fight for something that they don't support themselves. You know, if I were to fully agree with the Libertarian Party's platform, sure, I may go to your rally at Brookwood Village if it was
Yeah,
something
I'm
I
offering
actually
free
agree.
beer. I'm offering free beer. You gonna come?
Even then, it might take a party platform that I really do stand behind to get to that point. And as of right now, you know, I have disagreements with kind of all of them, and I don't really, you know, have some strong feelings for the Libertarian Party right now, and clearly a lot of people don't, with how they've polled. And
Like
until
8% of the people don't have.
yeah, exactly, and I think that is part of human nature, and you kind of hinted at that earlier, that people aren't going to want to, you know, stick their necks out for something that they don't even necessarily support.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the crux of the matter. Everyone complains about a two-party system, but until there's a third or fourth party that people really want to stick their neck out for, I mean,
Yeah,
that's the phrase that's used. One on which they agree with every single portion of the platform. Why would they?
yeah,
I mean, why
yep,
would they?
yep,
And so, however, knowing that there's never going to be a political party that meets the needs of every single individual, well, heck, I guess I'll just go with one of the either chocolate or vanilla,
yep,
because they might meet 60% of what I need, but the Libertarians are only meeting 60% of what I need, and the Green Party's meeting 30% of what I need, or something along those lines. That if no one's meeting all your needs, then there's absolutely no reason for change.
yeah, yep,
And so that's where I think we are. We can complain about it. We can complain about it, but that's kind of where it is. No one's incented to create another political party. No one is going to be able to create a political party that meets all the needs of every individual American, because every individual American has different wants, desires, risk tolerance, and return expectations.
yep, yep.
And
Completely agree.
so that kind of what it boils down to. It doesn't matter if you're Gen Z or Gen X, baby boomers, millennials, until we get to a point where we are so fed up with the two political parties, where there is something on which we are willing to, I guess, fall on our sword, Sam, to use an old analogy or cliche. Until we have that type of thing, I think we're just going to stumble from election to election, being upset with our two political parties, being upset with the people that we're putting up for office, and waxing nostalgic back to a simpler time when it was almost the exact same as it is right now.
Yep. No, not a whole lot is going to change, at least in my mind.
So I feel the exact same way. So no matter what happens next week, at least the final voting will be over with.
Yep.
On November 4th,
Looking forward to it.
on November 4th, we probably still won't know who's going to be president of the United States. More than likely, they'll be counting up mail-in ballots in Wisconsin, or mail-in ballots in North Carolina, Virginia, or some such place. But let's just hope that, gosh, keep our fingers crossed. We all have our own hopes and desires on who ultimately triumphs, but it would be great to make sure that, or not make sure, it'd be great if it were just clear. There was a clear-cut definitive winner, as opposed to, oh my gosh, we're going to take this to court and all that stuff.
Once again, I completely agree with you.
Right. Well, guys, thank you all so much for your time. We always love hearing from you. Also, if you have any questions or comments, please let us know. You can always drop us a line at tradingperspectives@oakworthcapital.com, or you can leave us a review on the podcast outlet of your choice. If you're interested in hearing more, reading more of what we have to say, you can always go to oakworthcapital.com and look underneath the thought leadership tab. Underneath that, you will find all kinds of good articles and hopefully insightful commentary. Sam is always going to give you the last opportunity.
That's all I got.
That's all I've got today, too. Y'all take care.